because of automation, I can produce a pizza from, a bag of dough to slices for about $2.65 per pie. I can make that pie from start to finish in under 300 seconds. In the end, your core business depends on your drivers and how you treat your drivers and how you pay your drivers. Out of probably 700 orders I've done with DoorDash, I saw my first catering bag last week. Or maybe it's all of our own faults, and we created this really awesome network of doing on-demand gig work. And you only need to work when you need money, and that's it.
Welcome back to Delivering More, folks. Thank you so much for consuming the content morning, afternoon, and evening. We appreciate it. As always, if you could, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below. That's going to help us out more than you could ever know. I have an amazing guest today on the Delivering More platform. I have an expert in the food delivery realm, and his latest ventures have taken him into robotics and automation within the pizza industry. I have Andrew Simmons joining me today. Andrew, welcome to Delivering More.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Of course, man. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking out the time here to squeeze me in during the week here. I just want to start out here. Where are you joining me from?
I'm actually in San Diego today. So I was in Philly yesterday. I'm back in San Diego this morning.
Oh, wow. We're traveling back and forth across the country. That's got to be, are we feeling jet lagged, or you get used to that after a while?
No, actually, it's not bad. It's a nice direct flight from San Diego. So I hop on the plane about 10 o'clock at night, arrive in Philly at 7 a.m., hit my meetings, hop back on the plane at 6, and I'm back in San Diego.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right. Busy guy. Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Colorado. I was born in Colorado, grew up there. As soon as I turned 21, I moved to California when houses were cheap, and then bought a house and can't afford to leave.
Nice. So are you at your home in San Diego, or where'd you move to originally in California?
Yeah. So I moved to San Diego, and then every year that I lived there, I moved a little bit further out until I ended up where I am now, which is kind of in a rural area outside San Diego. So I have like an acre and a half of land, 160,000 gallon koi pond, a gym,
Wow.
some property. So it's kind of nice.
Nice. A koi pond sounds pretty cool. I'd like to get a visual of that if you could send some pictures over or something like that. What growing up, you said you grew up in Denver, well, not Denver, but Colorado. What was your first job growing up out there?
I think my first job, I think it was like 14 or 15 years old. I worked for a fruit stand,
Nice.
produce stand, I guess. Then
Okay.
that produce stand was owned by this one family, and this one family did, the produce stand and the Christmas trees, then the fireworks, and then back to the produce stand. So it's kind of like a year-round job with it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I feel like that's how we have some Christmas tree places around here in Ohio. Obviously, I feel like they're always finding new stuff to do depending on the season. So you
That's
kind of
right.
you come and go as you
It's all
please.
seasonal.
Nice. What was your first delve into the restaurant industry then? Did you ever grow up working in a restaurant at all?
I think when I was 17 or 18, I was working for actually I was delivering pizza. So
Nice.
one of my first jobs, second, third, I don't know, fourth job maybe. A lot of jobs.
All right. So you got a nice background actually in the delivery realm before you got into it as far as a business. How about education? Did we get through high school, college, anything along those lines?
No, not really. I did like about 6 months of college. I aced computers. I failed everything else. I just couldn't focus, and so I decided to strike out on get a job.
Yeah, hey, that makes two of us. So no worries there. I think colleges may be a little antiquated these days anyway, depending on the degree. So
For sure.
I think we're moving past it a little bit. What about I guess we can kind of. I have your timeline as far as jobs for me on LinkedIn as well only goes back to about 2017. I kind of left out things that didn't really deal within our realm of business nowadays. So if you want to reference anything like that, you're more than welcome to. But I have here, DeliverLogic, Orange Crate, Nimble Deliveries. I think maybe the most prevalent here would be the RMDA in my realm of things. But all those are kind of overlapping as far as a timeline. So could you run me down like how all that worked out? When did you start with DeliverLogic? What was that Orange Crate, Nimble Deliveries, and then how all that ties into the RMDA?
Sure, sure. So I've always owned or run some type of service business before. So when I moved to California, I ended up starting my own print shop. Ended up having a print shop that had about 56 employees altogether. Got into doing digital printing like probably years ahead of its time. Went to work for Icon and Kodak, and then somewhere along the line there, I adopted 6 kids, and I had to
Wow.
step away from actually doing any kind of work, which I thought, how bad could 6 kids be to adopt all at once? Turns out that it's a lot of work. So I kind of semi-retired from what I was doing, and then after about 6 or 7 years of that, I decided I wanted to get back into working again. So I went to work for Domino's as a driver. I was interested in buying a franchise and realized that that was not something I really wanted to do, was to own a franchise. So I took the software that I had developed that was for drivers that and kind of flipped it around and made it into Orange Crate. And Orange Crate was that restaurant delivery service for restaurants in Ramona, which is a pretty, like I said, rural area. So, the likelihood of us ever seeing DoorDash was going to be years away. I don't think DoorDash came to our market until about 3 years ago. So, we did a lot of food deliveries for all the different restaurants. So before you only had, I think Domino's was your only delivery choice. After we had Orange Crate, you had all the restaurants. And then I kind of grew it and expanded it across the country. So I went into other rural markets, and that's how I kind of got my love of expansion, going into more cities, building up the overall business and that kind of thing. Somewhere along the line there, I worked for DeliverLogic doing some business development for them for about a year. But answering to somebody else was never that much fun to me. So after about a year, I left. I still had Orange Crate at the time, and I continued to grow Orange Crate out. So I think at its height, we were probably 42 cities. Um, and I just recently sold that, probably March, February. I think February I sold it to
Nice.
my partner.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. That's a great backstory. I appreciate all that information. I think, as far as I'm aware, Orange Crate, and then more specifically the RMDA, deals with localized deliveries, helping out the local restaurants more specifically. Did you always have an inkling that that would be a better service to those restaurants? Or obviously, nowadays, you're a strategic advisor for Delivered. You mentioned you're big on expansion and move into markets and things of that nature. Do you feel like that is the best route to go about when you're delivering for these restaurant partners?
Yeah, I really think that restaurants have the best luck with local delivery companies, whether it's a mom and pop like Orange Crate, or some other local smaller company. Um, there were quite a few members of the RMDA that really only serviced their one little tiny city, and that was it. But I feel like it's a better extension of the brand for the restaurant. So it's not somebody who's grabbing the food, throwing it in a bag, tossing it on the front seat of their car, and then driving and dropping it off on the porch of the customer and walking away. It's someone that has an actual catering bag, that has the experience to make that delivery, whether it's something from McDonald's, or it's something coming from Subway that's got 150 sandwiches that has to be set out just perfect on that table. And that's where I think that's where the independent delivery companies do really well at. So that's the same for Delivered. I'm sure it's the same for DeliverThat as well. It's all about extension of the brand, presentation, and not making the brand look bad in front of the customer.
For sure. And I think too, maybe a point to the localized delivery fleet would be that, you can obviously problem solve probably so much easier when those fleets are local to your market, right? You don't have to call into a call center and wait on hold to, you can just like, hey, can you come in today? Can I come to your office? Can you come to the restaurant? Can we sit down and talk, face to face instead of, a Zoom meeting like we're doing now, or just a phone call or text
Right.
message?
Yeah.
Nice. So what in regard to, then we can move on to the Nimble deliveries, obviously recently acquired by DeliverThat as well. In regard to acquisitions and mergers and things of that nature, in an effort to be able to compete against the market share of a DoorDash or an Uber Eats, do you feel like that kind of activity is necessary for some of these smaller active local delivery delivery services to be able to compete with those big dogs in the market?
Yeah, I don't think it, it really depends on the mindset of the owners. Some of the people that I've talked to are just happy handling deliveries only for that market, and their job really is their job. It's not something grander than that. They're not looking to make $1 million a year. They're happy making 30, 40, $50,000 a year and just taking care of that local market. Um, but I think that if you want to move into other markets, if you're looking to scale, you really kind of have to pull in those right kinds of partners to help you grow. So I think that where it made sense, like for me, for Orange Crate, I love to grow and expand. And so, we were in, 42 cities, but we had a lot of other people helping us to get to that point. And that's kind of the same way it was with Chris at Delivered. Chris really wanted to grow into more markets, faster than where he was at. Still provide that same localized service and everything, but where we shine with Nimble, just like Orange Crate, was really how to pull those people together, pull in those additional cities, and still maintain that wholeness factor of you're dealing with somebody local, someone that's going to take care of you, and not be just like 55,000 drivers on an app all going for that $6.99 delivery.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely know what you're saying there. And again, I want to congratulate you too on the two acquisitions, Orange Crate and Nimble Deliveries. Obviously, it's being able to facilitate things like that is probably, it's kind of above my pay grade. I've never been involved in something like that. So I imagine that takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. So congratulations on that end. In regard to food delivery as a whole, right? You mentioned you started food delivery at 17 technically as a pizza delivery driver. So you've got decades of experience in this realm. It seems to me that there's still some puzzle piece of the system that seems to be missing, whether it's delivery drivers and payment or restaurants and the satisfaction they get with the service as a whole, right? There's always something, a little key piece missing to that puzzle. Are you able to poke your finger on that? And is there something you see glaringly that, really thinks we could bring to this and mend a relationship that seems to have been fractured at times and maybe over the past years has gotten better, but, we need to make this a fruitful relationship for all parties?
Sure. So there isn't really just one particular thing that sets it off. I think it's just a multitude of different things. In the end, your core business depends on your drivers and how you treat your drivers and how you pay your drivers. And I think that's where the the services that do well, that grow, are all taking care of their drivers. It's not just about the pay or how fast you pay them, but how do you recognize what they do for you to help grow your own brand? So, you and I both share a large client, um, and and how those drivers that we have to all pull together to make sure that they show up to get that large catering order, to make sure that order is delivered properly, to make sure that it's set out properly, the photos are taken, everything that goes with it doesn't happen if you're not taking care of your drivers. And so I think that while there's not one specific point where one specific part of the puzzle, it's how to keep it all flowing together, and keep those drivers happy.
For sure. Yeah, no, it makes plenty of sense for me, obviously being in the same realm of business. What you mentioned, making sure these drivers are understanding it and understand what they're able to do and what they can do. Do you think education is a big piece in making sure these drivers understand what specific brands expect? Obviously, on platforms like ours, you're dealing with, hundreds of different brands, whether they want a full scale sterno and rack setup or they just want to drop and go, a couple taco boxes, things of that nature. Are there things in the realm of education you think delivery services could be doing better to make sure these drivers understand what these restaurant partners want as well?
Absolutely. I mean, every client that we onboard, there's a separate SOP that goes with that particular um, that particular client. How you roll that out, how you teach the drivers what the client's expecting of them. You can't really force them into following your rules because they're all, essentially all 1099 drivers. They're all your partners in this endeavor. But I think that you're always going to have drivers that just want to get by, and you're going to have drivers that just want to do the absolute best job they possibly can. And those are the drivers who really want to help along, make sure that they're taking care of the best. Um, Teach them what they need to know so that they succeed within that opportunity. And then, for us, we have a AI that we call Frederick, and Frederick helps us to track our drivers better, find the right types of opportunities for them based upon what they want. With delivered, we get thousands of orders in per week. So how do we find the right driver for the right restaurant for the right fit? We get feedback from the restaurants, we get feedback from the drivers, and we tie it all together with that AI. Um, but that AI only helps us to do our job better in finding those opportunities and making sure that everybody's happy, the client, the driver,
Yeah. I think,
yeah, it's like a lot of different things in there.
for sure. Yeah, there's always going to be a ton of different variable to make sure things go off without a hitch. I should have mentioned at the top of the show here, the title of CEO of Pizza Roboto and Mama Ramona's, which I believe is your current focus, as well as being the strategic advisor at Delivered. And as we get into a conversation about AIs and automations and things of that nature, it seems like, as far as I can tell, your LinkedIn content and the videos you've been posting, how fast you guys are putting the pizzas together, all those other things along those lines. Is that your realm where you feel most comfortable nowadays? Is that where you feel most passionate? Is that what gets you out of bed every morning now, dealing with this pizza to robotics and automation and making sure all that flows together?
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved automation and robotics, tying it into food, tying it into, like, when I'm out there doing deliveries, or when I was out there doing deliveries, you see everybody scrambling, trying to pull together the orders, trying to get everything going properly. You see a huge labor shortage, folks who can't, who don't have enough people to help them get those orders done. And then, as it happens for me, we were making good money with Orange Crate, maybe too much money. And we thought, how do we take this huge pile of money and make it into a much smaller pile of money? Let's go buy a restaurant. And so, my partner and I started with Mama Ramona's and, started running the restaurant and kind of getting this perspective of what the restaurant sees when they're working with drivers themselves too, with third-party delivery companies. And so from there, going through all the different things, labor shortages, food shortages, COVID, we bought the restaurant a month before COVID hit. So that was January 2020. And so we got to live through that experience of how you survive when you're not allowed to let any of your customers come in the front door. Luckily for us, we do delivery. So, we can make things work on that part. But it came that, like, in July of last year, in 2022, I guess it turned out that my partner really hates owning a restaurant. And so I ended up buying out his share of the restaurant and then really being able to do what I thought the restaurant needed to grow and to be better. So for the years that Wayne, who was my partner, was with me, I always referred to him as our CNO, my chief no officer. Anytime I wanted to, do something, his response was, no, we're not going to spend the money for that. We're not going to fix the AC. We're not going to invest in this. We're not going to do that. But I think that's a lot of how most restaurants operate. They don't have enough people to help them figure out that tech, figure out what to do, how to automate and whatnot. So part of my bringing the restaurant into the current century, my restaurant was probably, it's over 4 decades old. When we bought the restaurant, they still had just a standard cash register and no point of sale, no nothing. Everything was written down on a sheet of paper and handed to somebody to go do. Um, so that's a lot of tech for a restaurant to switch from a cash register to more digital than from where we are from digital or from, I don't know if it's really digital, but from where they were to where we were then, and then from where we are then to where we are now. But then again, or then part of it as well is sharing that journey, and that's what I do on LinkedIn. I share the good, the bad, and the ugly. Everything that happens, whether it was, I hired some really bad employees. I almost said crappy there. Some really bad employees, and they retaliated when I got rid of them. They retaliated because we had robotics, and I weathered a huge shitstorm on social media because in my rural area, I had hired a robot to help deliver food. So to me, the robot's a tool. It helps you on a large table, 6 people, 8 people sitting at the table, to bring the food all out at once. You're still there to hand off the food, to still have the interaction with the customer. But, God forbid that this robot brought the food out instead of a person making 5 trips to the kitchen, so that the first person that got served doesn't get to eat until the last person gets served. And then the first person's food is cold because it took 5 trips to go to the kitchen. So my hope is that what I go through with the restaurant, that I share, that happens within the restaurant, that someone can just say, this is what I'd like to do. Here's the step by step. I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I'm just going to go get this piece of automation or this tool or this point of sale system, and not have to go through 7 different point of sale systems or 4 different robots, or, well, if there could even be 4 robots, but, running through all the different types of tech that's out there. Now we're kind of switching into, that's great that I sell. It's great that I sell pizza in this one particular market, which is extremely rural. But how do I take what I have learned and move it into other areas, other opportunities? And that's kind of what we're running through right now. But then on top of that, how do I fund it to make it happen? So I run crowdfunding campaigns to raise money to add more equipment, add more locations. But from that, I do a rev share. So if you're gonna subscribe to my program, and it might be, I think it's $500 for a 12-month subscription to a rev share program, I'm going to give you 4 pennies of every pizza that I produce for 12 months out of that particular location to share with you, whether it works or not. I think it'll work ultimately, but my goal is that the $499 that you invested in it comes back and gives you $699 or $800 or $1,000 back. But in rev share, it could just flop and nothing happens. You get nothing at all. That's why it's rev share. So that's kind of where we're headed. The reason I was in Philly yesterday was I was signing two leases on 2 locations out. So in another 5 weeks, I think, we'll be live in Philly in 2 markets selling pizza, and doing the only pizza subscription program that's out there that I'm aware of. So because of automation, I can produce a pizza from, a bag of dough to slices for about $2.65 per pie. That includes all labor, includes everything. But I'm only able to get there through automation. I can make that pie from start to finish in under 300 seconds. So once I've got the dough ball pressed through the through the equipment we have, into the oven, into the box, sliced, is under 300 seconds. So how do I take that tech that I know and now roll it out to all of these different markets? And that's what the current experiment is doing now. So 2 locations in Philly, 2 more locations in San Diego, all open before the end of the year.
That's also so impressive, and congratulations on the new leases and everything. I have a couple follow ups in regards to the response there. Being the owner of a restaurant, and then also being involved in the delivery service side of things, do you feel like having the full circle vision of all of the players in this relationship, prepping the food, making sure it gets out on time, and making sure the delivery goes off without a hitch, does that benefit you? I imagine it does exponentially, right? You can create new ideas from what you see that doesn't go wrong and what goes right. How beneficial is it to have a full circle view of the relationship between all these players?
It's 100% beneficial because I'm seeing things from both sides of things. Like when you're doing when I owned the Orange Crate prior to owning the restaurant, it was all about, I mean, to me, it made perfect sense. Why not let me take the food, let me deliver it for you, let me have that great, perfect experience. But I have no experience on what the restaurant does to get there, to get the food to you, to solve any issue that comes up at the last minute. Um, from the restaurant side, I'm seeing it now like this is what we could do better. So, for instance, like, um, you know, we process deliveries and send them to our drivers through Delivered. We also use DoorDash and Grubhub and Uber Eats. I can tell you that every single driver that comes in from Delivered has a catering bag. Out of probably 700 orders I've done with DoorDash, I saw my first catering bag last week. So, they don't know what a catering bag is or a pizza bag or anything. On the flip side, if I delivered food 2 years ago without a bag and brought it to the consumer, the consumer would call Orange Crate or email Orange Crate and say, my driver showed up without a bag. My food's not perfect. Since owning the restaurant, since sending orders out through DoorDash, do you know how many complaints I've had? Someone calling me up to tell me that their food arrived not in a bag? Absolutely none. Nobody's called me. So what's shifted? Is it just that consumers have come to accept that their food's going to be cold, or maybe not cold, lukewarm? Whereas when my drivers do it through Delivered, when we did it through Orange Crate, that food arrived as hot as it came out of the oven. So is it, 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 it I don't know. I don't know how to quantify it, but why is that different? Why do we have to provide the perfect experience when we do it independently? When a national player does it, they don't do it, but nobody comes down on top of them for it. How has that expectation changed? And how do I do something better with those drivers? Now, every single driver that's come through that had no bag, I offered them a bag. They turned me down. Or they said they had one in the car, So I haven't given out any bags to anybody. And I haven't had any complaints that my food was, cold. Usually it's just something that they say is missing. And that's my other argument that I have going on with DoorDash on LinkedIn is all of these random discounts that they give out.
Yeah, and I do want to touch on, you mentioned, the subscription and revenue sharing and how much you've been sharing on the back end as far as what your robotics and automation can do. And I think the transparency piece is something we talk about, DeliverThat a ton in regards to our drivers and our partners. And then for you specifically, just being as transparent as you are with what you're doing inside your restaurant, what you're, the issues you're having with DoorDash and all these other delivery partners specifically. It's only going to help the people all involved in this realm of business, right? Because now they thought, oh, this is only happening to me. How can I get a response about it? How can I be better at it? How can I do this moving forward? And now they're saying, oh, well, if Andrew's going through it as well and he's putting it out there, well, now I know it's not just me. I know it's a reoccurring issue. I know it's something we all need to address. Do you feel like that's a better way of doing things, like getting a community involved behind it and making sure everyone understands what's going on?
100%. Like My last post that I did with in regards to DoorDash, and it had to do with these. So I should kind of step back a little. When you buy something from DoorDash, you can reach out to DoorDash and you can get an instant credit back on your food for whatever that reason might be. And it's generally a disproportionate amount of credit against the actual item that was delivered to them. So say like I ordered a 12-inch pepperoni pizza and I wanted a ranch dipping cup, or I wanted two ranch dipping cups, and I only got one. Or I got a dipping cup, but I didn't think it was enough dip for me for my pizza. So I complained to DoorDash, and DoorDash gives you a $6 credit for that, that single dip cup on there. And then you log into DoorDash and it says, we gave this credit. And so after you calculate out the credit that they gave, the commission they took, the fees and everything, on a $65 order, you're left with $13. So you say, I want to fight that. And you go to click on it, and the form tells you you can't dispute it. You can't provide proof that it was delivered. You can't show anything. Like I have videos of where, you know, we show three pizzas, three dipping cups, and the DoorDash driver getting the food. But nobody called me from DoorDash and said, hey, what's going on? And so that's kind of this ongoing conversation I'm having with DoorDash. But when I write about it on LinkedIn, I see a lot of other people that say the same things. I'm having that same problem. But if nobody says anything, nobody talks about it out loud and publicly, it either gets swept under the rug. DoorDash says, well, merchants don't care because we're not hearing about it, or there's enough people that start to talk and get together and reach out to DoorDash, and maybe DoorDash makes those changes. It doesn't have to be DoorDash. It could be Uber. It could be, Grubhub. DoorDash is super easy to pick on because they're everywhere. But, change doesn't happen without someone bringing it to someone's attention first and then getting more consensus from other people. And I have found that when I write about this stuff on LinkedIn, that people higher up than the usual person you might deal with end up reaching out to me to try to solve the problem. So like, for instance, when I took over the restaurant, I added DoorDash because I wanted to see like how much volume does DoorDash bring me versus my local delivery company, Orange Crate. Orange Crate was in Ramona for 8 years. We were there for 5 years. I had to DoorDash. How much more business, will it bring me? It took me 7 months to get onto the DoorDash platform because DoorDash didn't recognize that I was an actual restaurant, even though I'd been, in this restaurant business for so long. And they would say, send me proof of your, sales tax. Send me proof of this. Send me proof of that. And I would send it, and it'd be this black hole. I'd never hear a word again. And then a couple of weeks later, I'd try it again. And then I write the post about how long it took to get onto the platform. And within an hour, somebody gets on and flips the switch, and suddenly I'm live. So it ends up helping me to reach the right people. And then in that, have the right conversations with those people. So, DoorDash does say that they are working on a way for a merchant to refute something that could happen. But right now, there's no real ability to do that. So one thing that we did do was we added, little wise cams, those old $19 cameras, and we have them aimed right over the front counter. And every order that comes in, every employee has to basically show the order, the complete order, all the parts being assembled, and then hand it off to the DoorDash driver, at least for some proof that we actually did do that order correctly. Now, if there's a complaint, there's almost no way for me to submit that. They're not interested in hearing or seeing that information, but maybe down the road, they will be. Maybe there's some way that what I'm doing today helps somebody down the road. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if you're asking me, I think without a doubt it will, right? I think what you're doing is so beneficial for everyone, the restaurants, the delivery partners, everyone who's dealing within with our realm of business. And again, you can only get better and if we air things out, right? And we talk about it openly and then address the problems from there. So I'm very appreciative of you sharing all that with us, and talking about that today. Thank you so much for that. I do want to shift the conversation a little bit back to robotics and automation, right? You mentioned early on kind of the price point that it's actually allowing you to create these pizzas at, and how you're able to make a better profit and revenue on your end. There's a ton of larger fast casual concepts. They're getting into robotics and automation. You have, Chipotle, Sweet Green has their automatic make line at this point in time. White Castle has like Flippy and things doing burgers for them and fries on their end. What does robotics and automation specifically do on your end to be able to benefit your restaurant other than just a price point? Is it being able to make things faster and quicker and more efficiently and produce it the same way over and over and over, or is it just a bottom line revenue thing for you?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, so with automation, we were able to reduce our headcount within the restaurant from 14 employees to 4.
Wow.
Um, so that's a pretty significant savings. We didn't bring in the automation and then fire everybody. We basically let everybody leave at their own speed. So not everyone's a fan of robotics. They leave, they're gone. Not everyone's a fan of making $20 an hour. So they leave and they're gone. Um, and every person that leaves, we kind of look at, do we really need that person going forward? Is there something there that can replace them? I played with a robot that I call Mo that would essentially go out and sweep and mop all the floors of the restaurant automatically. Like, 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, you're closed, you push a button. And for over 2 hours, it goes out and scrubs and sweeps and scrubs and gives you the blackest water you've ever seen. Now, my employees were mopping the floors and they run an hour, hour and a half to clean the floors, but are they really doing a great job compared to the robot? Um, the robot cost is about $24,000. That's about a $700 a month lease payment. So, does that lease payment offset the cost of one person? Because it's not just the person at, 15, 18, $20 an hour. It's the burden that goes along with it. So all the payroll taxes and workman's comp and all that stuff. It's all the training that goes into it. And then, when they call you up 10 minutes before their shift and say there's an awesome party at XYZ's house and they're going there instead, now you're short. So really it's looking at this stuff. But then, I'm really trying to find stuff off the shelf. So the companies like Sweet Green and Chipotle and all those companies have millions of dollars that they can spend on this automation, and they can do super customized stuff. But what about for the smaller mom and pop? What do they buy? How do they make it work? What can they get? And some of the services like Nala and like Picnic do RAAS, robotics as a service. So you don't have to front $200,000, $300,000 to buy that equipment. You just pay one monthly payment. Nala has a really cool robot that I love that washes dishes. So at it's really about 2 part-time employees offsets the cost to have that robot. And the robot literally inspects a plate, picks it up, scrubs it, sticks it in the dishwasher, and then a robot on the other side pulls it out, puts it up on the rack for you. I think it's like $2,900 a month is that robot. So how many people do I have to make that work? And then, of course, space and whatnot. But any of those services that are running it as a RAS service make it so that it's affordable for folks like you and me to own a restaurant, start a restaurant, build a restaurant out with automation. But I think based upon the current labor economics right now, or whatever you want to call it, that we're all paying pretty well. Most people are, and you still can't get someone to show up to work. You have what you think is a pretty good work environment. You give them food, you communicate with them and whatnot. But for whatever reason, they still live at home. They don't need they don't need to have that job to make the rent, so they don't show up to work, or jobs are plentiful and they can just jump from job to job or work as needed. Or maybe it's all of our own faults and we created this really awesome network of doing on-demand gig work, and you only need to work when you need money, and that's it. um, but for whatever reason, it's harder to find folks to work in your restaurants. And so what's the alternative to that? And it ends up being some form of automation and some form of robotics, usually.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And I think, what you're speaking on specifically is making sure that if you want to go into the robotics and automation, like you said, making sure that is this, how many employees is this going to offset? What is my break even cost, right? At what point is this actually beneficial to me in my bottom line of my business? So that's always going to be a huge sticking point, because you mentioned, $24,000 sounds like a ton of money if you present it to a restaurant outright. But when you say, hey, but then you can, you cut 1, 2, 3 employees, and then you don't have to pay for, like you said, workers' comp. You don't have to pay payroll taxes, and then you just have all the savings on the back end. I think it could end up making a lot of sense for a lot of restaurant operators. So that's all. It's all very impressive. I really appreciate all that information. Again, I really only have one more question for you. And you kind of already mentioned it in regards to the expansion of Mama Ramona's to Philadelphia, and I believe you're going out to Oceanside, California as well. How big do you have dreams of making this massive concept, or are you just trying to find markets where you can you fit in where you get in, right? Or you're just finding store locations that make sense to you? Obviously, you're spending time in Philadelphia in relation to Delivered while you're there, so I imagine that kind of makes sense for you to pop up a Mama Ramona's there. How are you really conceiving where you want to go with that restaurant concept?
Yeah, so I'm really looking at areas that make sense, um, er, areas that are typically around college campuses, around hospitals, somewhere that has a high volume of orders that I can fulfill. I'm looking at cloud kitchens for space. I don't need a lot of space with automation. Like for Mama Ramona's itself, the main location, we're in 5,000 square feet. Most of the automation that I can run now runs in under 300 square feet. So I need 1 to 3 employees in each location. I'm looking for somewhere that has, like I said, a pretty heavy density of folks. I don't want to be in another rural market like I am now. I really want to take advantage of those economies of scale. And then I want to roll out that whole subscription program. And I don't remember if I talked about it, but we do this subscription program for pizza. It's 52 weeks of pizza, 1 per week, 12-inch pepperoni pizza. We sell for $199. So it's about roughly $4 per pie. On Black Friday, I'll sell it for $99. And I'll sell, like last year, I sold $30,000 worth of pizza in 24 hours, which
Wow.
sounds like a lot, but it's really about 300 subscriptions that came in. You know, it almost made our point of sale system look like an ATM machine with the number of receipts. It just kept printing out one after another, and that was in a rural area. So when we're in a more populated area, we're selling a lot more, but we're still making money with those subscriptions, even at that $99 price point, because as much as I love pizza, most people don't eat it every single week. They eat it every other week or every third week. So our overall redemption looks to be about 48%. There's holidays and whatnot. Now that might change. Like if I end up at a college campus, I can't imagine there's students there that would give up 1 free pizza a week. It's either ramen noodles or pizza. Which one do you want? But that being said, they come in, they buy the pizza, or they redeem the pizza, and then they buy another pizza, or they buy wings, or they buy soda, or they buy something else to go with it. So I want them to come in. It's not like sell it and then please don't come. It's sell it and then please come in and buy more. So in each store that I open up, we'll sell 500 to 1,000 subscriptions. And that's a good, steady We know that we're going to see 500 to 1,000 people per week, maybe at that 48% redemption. Who knows? For sure, once we're in a more populated area, but that's really kind of how we get our first thrust into the marketplace.
Yeah, that's nice. The ramen noodle and pizza diet. I'm very familiar. We used to have a place called Courtside Pizza at Ohio University. I think it was like 50 cents for cheese, 75 cents for pepperoni on Wednesday nights. And I think Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I was eating ramen noodles. So I think, yeah, we're all on the same page there. But Andrew, man, I greatly appreciate your time. It's great to meet you virtually here today. Very, very intelligent, very forward-thinking individual in this business. So again, great to sit down with you, pick your brain a little bit about where you see things going and what you're doing right now. But thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you very soon.
You bet. Thank you.